Hari Om Tat Sat. Let us read from another short section of Roar of the Ganges. This is a book that has been gifted to me and through me to all of you by one of our members, Sky Guardian. His guru wrote this book, Swami Tadatmanandaji, and his guru expressed permission for me to read this with all of you. We've read a significant portion of the book thus far. It takes place in India, in a city called Rishikesh, on the banks of the Ganges, a river also known as the Ganga in Sanskrit. It's a very spiritually revered river, as per the title of the book suggests. And before Swami Tadatmanandaji was a Swami, he was Mark. Mark, the divorced computer scientist who was beginning his spiritual quest. And so he was studying Vedanta, the study of scriptural knowledge in India. And this book is both a story of his journey in India to coming to Swamihood, monkhood, as well as a mix of Vedanta itself, spiritual teachings. So it's a very practical and enjoyable book for both the spiritual seeker and just an interested listener in someone's adventures. And thank you, Haley Queen, for your 7 tiny dinies. Yippee! And thank you, Nanya, for your ginger man. Hari Om Tat Sat. Recently, we had seen that he went to a very traditional ashram, which was led by another Swami known as Vidyananda. He, Mark, and his friend Vijay had went to go experience the study of Vedanta from a very traditional perspective. After the teacher, Swami Dayananda, mixing up my Swamis, there's a lot of Swamis in this book. After the teacher, Swami Vidyananda, led the recitation of closing prayers, he picked up his books and descended from the dais, frowning, as always, very serious Swami. His students bowed once again. After he left the hall, Vijay and I stepped outside into the courtyard. A group of students had gathered there, some standing, some sitting on the low brick wall surrounding the open square. The youngest among them appeared to be about 16 years old, the oldest about 20. All were slender, with delicate, almost girlish features, accentuated by their shaven heads. They talked softly, sometimes giggling like school children. All were dressed in the saffron robes of sannyasis, spiritual renunciants. I remarked to Vijay in a hushed voice, "They are so young. How could they have been initiated as sannyasis at such an early age? I thought it's traditional to study for many years before becoming a monk." "That is true," said Vijay, with a heavy accent as always. "But they are not sannyasis yet. They are all still Brahmacharis, students like you and me. In this ashram, all Brahmacharis are wearing orange cloth, but they are not taking vows of renunciation yet. Do you see, they are still having the tuft of hair on the back of the head." I glanced at their shiny domes, all recently shaved. A single lock of hair, intentionally left by the barber's blade, hung from the back of each head. This lock of hair, called shikha, or sacred tuft, is a religious emblem worn by students. It symbolically consists of 3 strands which represent the student's 3 primary relationships: to the Guru, to the scriptures, and to God. Each strand is looked upon as a link securing these 3 sources of spiritual sustenance. The Shikha is given up when the student becomes a sannyasi, although the relationships it symbolizes are never given up. 2 of the Brahmacharis looked at us and giggled nervously. "They may only be Brahmacharis," I quietly remarked to Vijay, "but still, they are so young." "Shouldn't they wait until they are older before joining the ashram? How old were you when you first went to live and study in an ashram?" "I was leaving my job to join ashram when I was 23 years old. Some boys are taking to spiritual life when they finish high school, but most are starting later. Nowadays, a few ashrams are requiring that you must be college graduate before joining." "How long will these students stay here?" I asked. "The traditional length of study is 12 years. Some might be staying that long, but many will be leaving before that." 12 years is a long time, I remarked. "What will they study?" "First, they learn Sanskrit grammar completely, with so much memorizing. Also, they are studying texts on logic and scriptural analysis. They are not permitted to study scriptures until they complete these classes. Then they will begin learning all scriptures like the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita," this one, "and the Brahma Sutras. They will study each scripture with Shankaracharya's commentaries and important sub-commentaries. Of course, they spend time in meditation and prayer also, but mostly they study." "Do you think such rigorous study is necessary to gain enlightenment?" I asked. Vijay smiled. "Of course not. You already know that enlightenment is not from so much study. But I don't understand why there is so much emphasis on scholarship here." Vijay explained. "To become a good teacher, traditional scholarship like this is important. They are learning how to interpret scriptures and how to use teaching methodology properly." "I understand, but isn't the main reason for living in an ashram to become enlightened, not to become another teacher?" "Yes, that is true." "So," I persisted, "do you think they will all get enlightened through their studies here?" "Study is necessary," he replied, "but enlightenment does not depend on how much they are studying. Unless they are fully prepared students and are possessing all the necessary qualifications, their studies will be fruitless." Vijay alluded to certain qualities considered prerequisites for gaining enlightenment through Vedantic study and self-inquiry. These qualities are like the prerequisites for a college class. What is taught in class cannot be fully grasped without first completing certain introductory courses. The prerequisite qualifications for Vedantic study include the capacity for discriminative reasoning, viveka, dispassion, vairagya, proper attitudes, and a compelling desire for spiritual growth, mumukshutva. I hear my phone vibrating. See if I can do this with one hand. Okay. Now, can I put it back with one hand? Now that's another question. Not efficiently, but the answer is yes. As we chatted, Most of the Brahmacharis left the courtyard. A few climbed a nearby stairway to a large dormitory-like building. I asked, what will they do when their studies are complete? When they finish their studies, Swami Vidyananda will be giving them sannyasa. They will then take vows of renunciation and get new names, their Swami names. Then they will be going to some town or village to teach and help people. I looked at two young acolytes who remained in the courtyard. They seemed so young. I had previously noticed how Indian children seem to mature more slowly than their American counterparts. Teenagers here sometimes seem quite childlike in comparison. Yet these teens were apparently sufficiently infused with religiously ideals to commit themselves to a monastic life at an age when their schoolmates were still in the fields playing soccer. I questioned Vijay about the wisdom of committing oneself to monastic life before having the opportunity to explore other aspects of life. How could they be so sure that they would not eventually want to get married or have a career? How can you renounce something you've never had, something you never experienced? Vijay had no problem with the boy's hasty commitment to monasticism, nor, for that matter, did he have any problem with my own upcoming initiation. He accepted sannyasa as a normal step in life. Before long, he too would become a sannyasi. But to me, commitment to monastic life did not seem so easy. I wondered if some of these teenagers might one day regret the decision they made. Even my own decision did not come about easily. I had come to India to take the final, irrevocable step of renunciation by entering into the life of sannyasa. Is it possible I might later regret my decision? This I had long debated, yet my situation was very different than that of those young Brahmacharis. I had the opportunity to fully and freely explore what life could offer. I had been married and had built a satisfying career. I had also the opportunity to recognize the limitations of worldly life. Unlike these Brahmacharis, I knew what I would be giving up. I felt no regrets, yet I had no way of knowing what the future might bring. How could I be absolutely certain that I would always feel like this? The future holds no guarantees, but this was my choice, a long deliberated choice, and despite my concerns, I felt prepared to face that unknown future as a sannyasi. There we go. A lovely exploration of curiosity concerning how in India it can be quite normal for people at such a young age to renounce worldly life and become dedicated spiritual seekers. But for us here in the West, such a decision does not come about easily. That's for sure. Thank you for listening to this section with me. And thank you to those who sent a gift whilst I read.